What is up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. Hope y'all have had a fun Memorial Day weekend. Summer is unofficially here, although you wouldn't know it by the weather here in Charleston. And also, more importantly, the NBA Finals are here. Now, previewing the finals would be the traditional thing to do here, but a wise man once told me, Brandon, you have to stand out. Be bold. So instead of doing the typical sports media thing like everyone else, I'm going to instead preview the NBA champions. So allow me to be the first to congratulate the Denver Nuggets on their first NBA championship in franchise history. So how did we get here? I mean, it usually isn't a huge surprise when a number one seed wins a title, particularly if you listen to my NBA preview where I told you they were my sneaky contender in the West. Okay, so what does this mean for the season? Well, I'm incredibly optimistic about this team, and one reason is that Jokic played for Serbia at the FIBA Worlds this summer. That should help him come into the season in game shape and cut down on some of those conditioning-related issues I was talking about. Charles Barkley won the MVP award the year after playing in the Summer Olympics for the Dream Team because he was in the best shape of his life due to playing basketball all summer. I think Jokic does the same, and I think Jamal Murray takes a little bit of time to get back in rhythm after missing a year and a half due to his ACL injury, but when he finally does get back in rhythm, I think he'll continue on that trajectory he was on when he helped take him to the Western Conference Finals. So this is my super sneaky contender in the Western Conference. I have them coming in over the 49.5 wins Vegas has set for them as the over-under and making a very deep playoff run. But as a lot of people are talking about now, they haven't really gotten a ton of coverage outside of the MVP debate between their star, Nikola Jokic, and the Sixers' Joel Embiid. And honestly, the team's rise has mirrored that of Jokic's career. Jokic was drafted 41st overall in the 2014 NBA draft, and that's just ridiculous value. There has never been a better pick made. You rarely draft all-stars that late, and outside of Jokic, you just don't get MVPs that late post NBA-ABA merger. Now, if you've listened to me long enough, you know my big thing with this podcast is my theory that everybody's an expert. And it's mostly tongue-in-cheek, but this is a great example of that in action in the sports world where people are paid a lot of money to figure out who to draft and when to draft them, and Jokic fell all the way to 41. Embiid is the only player picked in that draft who comes close to matching his production. Andrew Wiggins was the number one pick overall. Jabari Parker, remember him? He was number 2. Only 4 players drafted ahead of Jokic have even played in an all-star game. And him falling to 41 wasn't some huge shock either. Listen to this pre-draft scouting report on him from Bleacher Report. Quote, if Jokic can deliver accurate shooting and make the right plays when the ball is in his hands, he could be a poor man's Boris Diaw and a long-range threat like Pero Antic. Jokic would probably be the 4th or 5th scoring option when he's in the game, but all that matters is whether he plays efficiently. Unfortunately, his defense will likely prevent him from ever playing 30-plus minutes or starting. However, there's no shame in being a respectable reserve on a winning team in the future. They thought he could be a poor man's Boris Diaw or Pero Antic, who played a whopping 113 games in the NBA. Anytime I think I can't survive in this industry, I go read that scouting report. Jokic came over a year after he was drafted, and his first season was also Coach Mike Malone's first season as the Denver head coach, and the Nuggets were awful but improving for the first couple of years there, then finally made the playoffs in 2018-2019, which was also Jokic's first season making the All-NBA team. And Jokic wasn't really getting national attention despite winning MVPs for a lot of the same reasons that the Nuggets as a team weren't. Not only weren't they viewed as being a real championship contender, but Denver's a smaller market NBA team, so they don't get national TV appearances like the Lakers or the Knicks, and they're in a time zone that a lot of people, myself included, aren't going to stay up and watch if they do happen to be on TV. And the Nuggets weren't a title contender for the same reason why Jokic wasn't feared and respected as a player with his accomplishments should be. I mean, he's clearly an offensive genius, but as wrong as that Bleacher Report scouting report was on his long-term prospects, it was pretty accurate on how bad he was at defense, which has been the Nuggets' issue since basically forever outside of the Dikembe Mutombo years. I mean, their superstar before Jokic was Carmelo Anthony, the recently retired Carmelo Anthony, who very much played defense like a man whose college coach was Jim Boeheim. And before Mutombo, you had Alex English, former Gamecocks player and North Charleston Low Gators head coach, who played for the team, and they would score 1,000,000 points and give up 1,000,001. No joke, the Nuggets played in the highest scoring overtime game ever and the highest scoring regulation game ever, and they lost both of them. Do you know how hard it is to lose a basketball game when you score 184 points? There were also factors outside of Jokic's and the franchise's control that prevented them from winning. In the bubble, they looked like the next team up. They lost to the Lakers in 5 games in the Western Conference Finals, but it was about as close as a 4-1 series can be. So they had all this optimism, and then boom, Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. got hurt. Porter Jr. misses time off and on with his back, so it wasn't a huge surprise. But Murray tore his ACL in the second half of that post-bubble season, and he missed all of last season, while Porter Jr. only played 9 games himself. They're the second and third leading scorers for the Nuggets, so what were they supposed to do with that? I mean, Jokic carried them to the playoffs and won his second straight MVP for his troubles, but let's be for real. So how did all the pieces fit together this season to the point that I'm able to declare them NBA champions before the series even starts? Why am I so confident? How would I even begin to describe this team? Well, if you're on Twitter or Reddit, you know the funny thing about Jokic being drafted so late is that it was past the point when each pick is announced by the commissioner. They just leave the graphics up on the screen and the pick will pop up while Jay Billis is talking about wingspan or whatever. So ESPN's draft coverage was actually on a commercial break when Jokic being picked was announced, so the graphic just popped up during the commercial. But not just any commercial, a Taco Bell commercial. And that's almost perfect because Jokic looks very much like a man who has enjoyed his fair share of Taco Bell. So I thought, what better way to describe this franchise that is a direct reflection of him than to use the Taco Bell menu. So let's start with the man himself, Mr. Nachos Bell Grande. Look, this is straight from the Taco Bell website. Welcome to the Nachos Draft, the daily lunch event that you've prepped for all offseason, aka since your last Taco Bell run. The #1 overall pick is an easy choice, the Nachos Bell Grande, with the most well-rounded refried beans, nacho cheese sauce, seasoned beef, reduced fat sour cream, and diced tomatoes that is guaranteed to be the MVP. I mean, right off the bat, as you can see, both are MVPs. Jokic was obviously not the #1 pick in 2014 like the Nachos Bell Grande in the Nacho Draft, but he clearly should have been. And if you were starting a franchise today and could pick any player to do so with, he'd probably be the #1 pick for that as well. He, like the Nachos Bell Grande, is known for being well-rounded. He's not only the best passing big man ever, but one of the best passers ever regardless of position. He is the Patrick Mahomes of the league. He passes the ball at angles other players can't. He can pass whether he's facing up or posting up, and he throws players open. You'll see guys looking well defended, but then he throws the ball, and next thing you know, the guy catching the pass has a wide open dunk. It's unreal. He can also handle the ball as well, which allows him to get the defensive rebound, which he's also good at, and lead the break. Combined with his passing, this makes him fantastic at initiating the offense in the half court too. Oh, and guess what? He can shoot it too, with this high-arcing Dirk Nowitzki-esque shot that's basically unblockable. He was 38% from 3 in the regular season, and he's 47% from 3 in the playoffs. And while those are great percentages for anybody, he only uses the 3 as a changeup to his main offensive weapon. And to me, this is what makes him so effective. Jokic led the league this season in post-ups per game with 9.1. The next closest player was Embiid with 6.5, according to NBA.com. Back in January, my GOAT, Hakeem Olajuwon, was interviewed by Sports Illustrated's Chris Ballard about the state of post play in the NBA today. Hakeem is the most skilled post player to ever play basketball. Go watch the tapes. Now, the main tone of the article was the disappearance of post play in today's NBA, but who is the only guy in today's game that Hakeem thinks gets it when it comes to playing in the post? That's right, Nachos Bell Grande. He said, quote, "He's playing the game and you think he's not serious, but he's so effective. He doesn't look strong, but I see he gets such deep post position. I think maybe it's the mismatch, but then he does the same thing against bigger guys. His shot, his fakes, they are very difficult to time. You don't know when he's faking and when it's real. He has tricks. He's the one." Okay, look, if Dream says you're the one, then you're the one. See, a lot of big guys today like to operate on the perimeter if they can shoot the ball a little bit, basically thinking that their advantage is their ability to shoot over smaller defenders. Not Jokic. He'll shoot it, but he's incredible at using his size to get defenders in that deep post position like Olajuwon said and just go to work. I don't know about you, but to me, that doesn't just sound like beef, but seasoned beef. And he's got an uncanny soft touch around the hoop where he flips in little fadeaways and hooks and floaters and made a filthy 67.5% of his two-point shots as a result. And when he does miss, he's such a skilled offensive rebounder that he usually just gets his own miss and puts it back in. He does all this while rarely leaving the ground and running like someone who just tripped and is trying to hide it. You know the jog I'm talking about. He's essentially unstoppable on offense. Anthony Davis had an all-time playoff performance this year in terms of defensive impact, and he couldn't do anything with Jokic. The Lakers very briefly looked like they had a shot when they switched AD off Jokic and let him act as kind of like a free safety to disrupt things, but then the Nuggets adjusted and now LeBron might retire. Now, as I said, defense has obviously been the issue with Jokic, but he's at least serviceable at this point. He's reduced the fat on his sour cream body and came into this season in basketball shape after a summer of playing national team ball for Serbia, and this improved conditioning seems to have helped with some of the laziness we'd see from him on defense from time to time. And by time to time, I mean a lot of the time. He'll never be Olajuwon on that end of the court, but he really only needs to be close to average with the way that he is on offense. Moving on, let's talk about Jamal Murray. All right, let's say you've had a long day, maybe playing women's volleyball for the Kentucky Wildcats, and tú quieres taco meat in your mouth ahora. But it can't just be a regular taco or burrito. It needs to be able to act as a full meal while also being able to fit in your hand. That's right, you need yourself a Crunchwrap Supreme like Jamal Murray. In those bubble playoffs a couple years ago, Murray looked like he was on his way to being a superstar. He averaged 27, 7, and 5 during that 19-game run to the Western Conference Finals, and he wasn't quite that good the next regular season, but he had upped his regular season averages and looked well on his way until he tore his ACL. Now, ACL tears aren't as devastating as they used to be, but obviously it's still a very serious injury. As a result, he missed all of last year, and basketball is very much a rhythm game, so it took him a bit to find his footing this year, but now he looks exactly as dominating as he did in those bubble playoffs. He's averaged 28, 6, and 6 in this year's playoffs, and his game is just so explosive on offense. He could be the number one option, much like the Crunchwrap Supreme, but is an impressive number two option on an offense with Jokic. And he can take over as the number one scoring option whenever he needs to, which is obviously made easier by Jokic's playmaking skills. Murray's also a solid playmaker himself, and he operates as Denver's point guard, and he has great size for a point guard at 6'4", 215. Now, he can be exploited defensively at times, but as I talked about with Jokic, the Nuggets' margin for error on defense is a lot higher because their offense is so spectacular. I mean, how many teams have a number two option that can drop 30 points in a half? And it's like, if you can't sit down and have the fancy dinner you want with a Nachos Bell Grande, you're not going to complain if you get the Crunchwrap Supreme. And the Crunchwrap Supreme is almost interchangeable with the Nachos Bell Grande in terms of function. Jokic can get you 30, so can Murray. The Nuggets actually have a number 3 option who can do that in Michael Porter Jr., or as I call him, the Doritos Locos Taco. Again, like Murray in the Crunchwrap Supreme, this could be a main course in a pinch. He's got all the talent in the world offensively, and it's not ridiculous to look at him shooting threes, which he hits 40% of at 6'10", and think, man, they could run their offense through this guy. Now that won't happen because of Jokic and Murray, and also because, like the nacho cheese Doritos taco shell, Porter Jr. is very brittle. He's had so many back injuries at this point that we just say he's got a bad back. And you're not supposed to have a bad back at 24, and bad backs do not get better over time. Also, much like the quality of the Doritos Locos Tacos, depending on location, he can also be inconsistent. He could give you 35 points or he could give you 5, which isn't ideal, but is made worse by the fact that he's an absolutely terrible defender. That's his equivalent of leaving you with cheese dust fingers. He can't guard a Doritos Locos Taco. Even with Jokic and Murray's struggles on that end, he will forever be the opposing offense's first choice to try to hunt. Now that's not getting fixed, but he has been healthy and more consistent offensively in the playoffs, and that's a big reason why the Nuggets are where they are. Now, if you want consistent, then you want the chicken quesadilla. Listen to this, quote, "The chicken quesadilla is a purist meal, and we say purist in the most complimenting way possible. It's a simple flour tortilla with some grilled chicken, a hefty portion of melted 3-cheese blend, creamy jalapeno sauce, and absolutely zero bells and whistles. It's the culinary equivalent to a comfortable plain black shirt that is equally sleek as it is chic. Or a good mid-range jump shot. You know, not showy, but consistent every single time. That one player you want to have the ball during the championship game with 3 seconds left on the clock and will win it for the team. You know what you're going to get. It's never a guessing game. It's reliable and is a go-to when you're ever in doubt." Now, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is more black forces than black shirts, and you don't want him to have the ball to win the championship game, but that dude shows up and does his job night in and night out for this team, which is incredible when you consider how hot and cold he was for the Lakers when he played for them. He's going to lock up the other team's best perimeter player. He's not going to get a ton of shots, but he will knock down the ones he does get, hitting 42% of his threes this year after spending most of his time with the Lakers hitting in the mid-30s, and he's going to do it just like the chicken quesadilla without bells and whistles, but sometimes ankle monitors. A great complimentary piece for this team, much like Aaron Gordon. Gordon has all the attributes to be a number 2 guy if you're absolutely broke. He's like the Crunchy Taco Supreme. If you've seen him in the dunk contest, you know he's got all the athleticism in the world. And skill-wise, he can do everything a little bit. He can score a little bit, shoot a little bit, defend a little bit, pass a little bit. If you were low on funds and had 2 or 3 of him, you could maybe tell yourself you had a full meal. But with just one of him on this team, you're all set. It's no coincidence that the Crunchy Taco Supreme comes in the Nachos Bell Grande combo, because I can't think of a better compliment to Jokic when it comes to forwards. I mean, he's a great cutter playing alongside one of the best ever at finding cutters. That's the starting lineup, and then you have bench guys like Jeff Green, who has been a reliable role player since Jesus had short hair. He was a freshman at Georgetown alongside Roy Hibbert. Jeff Green, not Jesus. And he does nothing flashy outside of posterize someone once a season. You can just always count on him to be there. The perfect side. Nachos and cheese. Basic, but necessary. And they use Bruce Brown off the bench as well. He comes in and he brings perimeter defense and energy with a little bit of scoring too. The perfect pick-me-up. The Baja Blast of this team. It's just really come together nicely for them. Not only are they gelling on the court and healthy, but they've also approached these playoffs with the highest level of sense of urgency of any team in the league. To quote Doc Rivers, they're not playing with their meat. If they have you down and out, they're going to step on your neck. We just saw it with the Lakers, Game 4 in LA. LeBron comes out and has a 30-point half, and the Lakers have a 15-point lead. It would have been easy for Denver to be like, okay, well, we're up 3-0 already. Let's rest up a little bit and just get them the next game. But no, they just walked them down in the second half and won it. Same thing against Phoenix. It was a 2-2 series. They've got KD and Devin Booker, who was playing out of his damn mind. It was a battle. They won 2 straight pretty easy, including everyone's favorite playoff tradition of blowing the Suns out at home in an elimination game. They're a tough-minded team on top of being talented. They seem to really believe they're champions. How many teams have all of that? None. That's why I feel confident in declaring them the champions now. Liv Mas. So congratulations to the Denver Nuggets on being the 2022-2023 Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silver's NBA champions. And this has been another episode of Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. I appreciate you listening, liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing. If you haven't already, check out my Above the Fold series right here on this channel, where I talk to people who are breaking the mold in the sports media industry, and I will catch you next week.